The galactic dominion of the Zalkar had long been unchallenged. For centuries, their fleets carved through star systems like a scythe through wheat, subjugating countless worlds under the banner of their empire. Their mastery of energy-based weaponry made them the terror of the cosmos, and their arrogance was as vast as the space they ruled. To them, no species could rival their technological prowess, certainly not one from a backwater planet in the outer rim of the galaxy. When the Zalkar scouts first stumbled upon Earth, they found themselves bemused. The planet was a late bloomer, its inhabitants still struggling with internal conflicts and petty disputes. Humanity's weapons, though developed, were primitive compared to the energy cannons and gravitic disruptors that the Zalkar wielded. Initial scans of human military technology returned readings that were almost laughable: projectile-based weapons, combustion engines, and a fledgling space fleet composed of tin cans that barely held together. Commander Thalgar, a seasoned leader within the Zalkar military, was the first to review the data. He sneered at the holographic displays before him, his mandibles clicking in disdain. "So, these are the humans?" he remarked, voice dripping with contempt. "This is what the galaxy fears? A species still bound by Newtonian physics?" His officers chuckled, sharing in his derision. The idea that these beings could pose a threat to the Empire was beyond absurd. The Zalkar wasted no time in making contact, although their version of contact was less a diplomatic overture and more a statement of inevitable conquest. Thalgar led a small fleet to Earth's orbit, confident that a show of force would be sufficient to cow these upstart creatures. The Zalkar flagship, an imposing dreadnought bristling with advanced weaponry, materialized above Earth's atmosphere, its shadow casting a pall over the lands below. A broadcast was sent to all of Earth's communication channels. Thalgar's image, towering and menacing, appeared on screens worldwide. "People of Earth," he began, his voice a low rumble that reverberated through every device. "You stand on the precipice of history. The Zalkar Empire has deemed your planet suitable for integration. Surrender now, and you will be spared. Resist, and you will be annihilated." On Earth, world leaders quickly convened in emergency meetings, but the outcome was clear to them: humanity was outmatched. Yet, as Thalgar's ultimatum echoed across the globe, the response was not one of fear, but of quiet resolve. Humanity had encountered threats before, none as advanced as this, but threats nonetheless. And they had always found a way to survive. Earth's reply was delayed, a deliberate act that only fueled the Zalkar's perception of human inferiority. Thalgar took the silence as a sign of their imminent victory. To further drive the point home, he ordered a demonstration. A single shot from the dreadnought's main cannon was fired, aimed at an uninhabited stretch of desert. The energy blast tore through the atmosphere and struck the ground, creating a crater miles wide. The shockwave felt hundreds of miles away. It was a warning, one that the Zalkar assumed would break the spirit of these primitive beings. But on Earth, in secret bunkers and military bases, something else was happening. The Zalkar were not the first to look down on humanity, nor would they be the last. In hidden facilities far from prying eyes, plans that had been laid out years in advance were being put into motion. A response was being prepared, one that the Zalkar could never have anticipated. As the dust settled from the dreadnought's demonstration, Earth's leaders finally sent their reply. The message was simple, direct, and delivered in a tone that was impossible to misinterpret. "We do not surrender. If it's a fight you want, then a fight you shall have." Thalgar laughed when he received the transmission. "Fools!" he barked, shaking his head in disbelief. "They choose death over salvation." He ordered the fleet to prepare for full-scale invasion. The Zalkar were going to show these humans what real power looked like. He envisioned Earth's cities crumbling under the might of his forces, its people kneeling in submission before the Empire. It would be quick, brutal, and definitive. What Thalgar didn't know, what no one in the Zalkar fleet could have known, was that humanity had never intended to fight a conventional war. They had known from the moment the Zalkar were detected that this would be a battle of survival, one that required more than just resilience or courage. It would require something new, something terrifying. As the Zalkar ships descended toward Earth, the humans prepared to reveal their answer, a colossal revelation that would shake the very foundations of the Zalkar's arrogance. The skies above Earth were darkened by the shadow of the Zalker fleet, a harbinger of destruction poised to strike. On board the Zalker dreadnought, Commander Thalger stood on the bridge, his eyes narrowed in anticipation. The humans' refusal to surrender had sealed their fate. He relished the thought of their impending annihilation, convinced that no force on this backward planet could challenge the might of his empire. But as the Zalker ships descended through the atmosphere, something unexpected happened. From deep within the Earth, massive structures began to rise. At first, the Zalker sensors registered them as mere anomalies, perhaps an after-effect of their earlier blast. But as these structures continued to emerge, it became clear that these were no ordinary defenses. They were colossal guns, each one larger than the largest Zalker ship, their barrels aimed directly at the invaders. Thalger's sneer faltered as he gazed at the display. "What in the void are those?" he hissed, his mandibles clicking in irritation. The humans, it seemed, had been hiding something. But even so, how could they possibly think these oversized relics could pose a threat? On Earth, in a command bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Evelyn Parton stood before a wall of screens, her expression steely and resolute. She was a woman of few words, her reputation built on decisive action and an unyielding will. It was she who had overseen the development of humanity's last line of defense, Project Titan. The guns that now loomed over the landscape were the result of decades of secret research and development. Concealed from the public and the world at large, they were designed not to deter, but to obliterate any threat that dared challenge humanity's right to exist. Each gun was a marvel of engineering, capable of firing kinetic projectiles at velocities that defied conventional physics. And now they were ready. "Status?" Parton asked, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "All systems green," came the reply from a technician, his hands flying over the controls. "Targets locked." Parton nodded, her eyes fixed on the largest of the Zalker ships, the dreadnought that hovered menacingly above the Atlantic Ocean. "On my mark," she said, her tone betraying none of the pressure of the moment. "Fire!" The order was given, and the first of the Titan guns roared to life. The ground shook with the force of the blast as the projectile shot from the barrel, its speed so great that it ignited the air around it. The Zalker sensors barely had time to register the incoming threat before it struck the dreadnought with the force of a meteor. The impact was cataclysmic, the projectile tearing through the alien ship's shields as though they were tissue, punching a hole clean through the hull. On the bridge of the dreadnought, alarms blared as Thalger was thrown to the floor by the force of the explosion. What was that?" he shouted, scrambling to his feet. The ship's damage reports were coming in faster than they could be processed. It was as if an entire star had exploded within the ship. "Commander, we've been hit by an unknown projectile," one of his officers cried, panic in his voice. "Shields are down. Hull integrity is compromised." Thalger's mind raced, struggling to comprehend how the humans had managed to do this. How had they hidden such power? And more importantly, how could he counter it? His thoughts were interrupted by a second blast, this one slamming into another ship in his fleet. The once imposing Zalker formation was now in disarray, ships scattering as they tried to evade the unstoppable projectiles. General Parton watched the chaos unfold on the screens, her expression grim. This was only the beginning. The Zalker had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price. But even as the Titan guns continued their assault, she knew the battle was far from over. The Zalker were a formidable enemy, and their response would be swift and brutal. There was no room for complacency. On the ground, the shock of seeing their fleet devastated by these gargantuan weapons sent ripples of panic through the Zalker ranks. Their overconfidence had been shattered, replaced by a growing realization that they had severely underestimated their opponents. Thalger, once so sure of his impending victory, now faced the grim reality of a battle he had not anticipated. His fleet was being torn apart, and for the first time in his career, he felt the cold grip of fear. But the Zalker were not without their own reserves of power. Even as the humans' massive guns continued to fire, the remaining ships regrouped, their commanders rallying their forces. Thalger, regaining his composure, barked orders for a counterattack. The Zalker weapons blazed to life, beams of searing energy lashing out toward the Titan guns. Yet, for all their fury, the humans' defenses held, absorbing the punishment with shields that defied the aliens' understanding. In the command bunker, General Parton received reports of the enemy's counteroffensive. The Zalker were adapting, focusing their fire on weakening the Titan guns' protective shields. "They're learning," she muttered, admiration tinged with the urgency of the situation. "But so are we." Her words were punctuated by the firing of another Titan gun, this time aimed directly at the heart of the Zalker fleet. The projectile tore through space, smashing into a cluster of enemy ships and vaporizing them in an instant. The battlefield was now a maelstrom of destruction, the once orderly Zalker formation reduced to chaos. The Zalker had come expecting an easy victory, but they had been met with a force unlike any they had ever encountered. The humans, with their primitive appearance, had revealed a strength that defied their expectations. The battle had only just begun, and already it was clear that the outcome would not be as certain as Thalger had once believed. But as the dust settled from the latest barrage, one thing became clear: this was not just a battle for Earth. It was a battle for survival, and humanity had no intention of losing. The battlefield that had once been a pristine expanse of Earth's atmosphere was now a graveyard of shattered ships and debris. The Zalker fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, lay in ruins, decimated by the relentless assault of humanity's Titan guns. Smoke and fire drifted in the void, the silent testament to the folly of underestimating Earth. Commander Thalger stood amidst the wreckage of his flagship's bridge, his once pristine armor scorched and battered. His confidence had been obliterated along with his fleet, replaced by a hollow sense of disbelief. He had witnessed the unthinkable, his invincible armada, destroyed by a species he had considered insignificant. The Zalker had never known defeat, and now, faced with the reality of their failure, Thalger could only grapple with the bitter taste of humiliation. "Commander," rasped one of his few remaining officers, struggling to stand. The bridge was in disarray, consoles sparking, and the air thick with smoke. "We've lost contact with the fleet. Our forces, they're gone." Thalger clenched his fists, his mind reeling. This was not how it was supposed to end. They were the Zalker, conquerors of worlds, the pinnacle of galactic evolution. How had it come to this? He turned his gaze toward the planet below, its blue surface unmarred by the devastation he had intended to unleash. The humans had fought with a tenacity and power that defied all logic, and now they stood victorious. On Earth, in the command bunker beneath the Rockies, General Evelyn Parton allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The battle had been won, but the cost had been high. Reports were coming in from across the globe: damage assessments, casualty lists, the grim toll of war. Yet, despite the losses, humanity had prevailed. They had stood against the might of the Zalker and emerged triumphant. "Status of the fleet?" Parton asked, her voice steady, masking the fatigue she felt deep in her bones. "Survivors are being picked up," replied one of her aides, his tone somber. "We're getting reports from the other Titan sites as well. All guns operational. The Zalker are retreating." Retreating. The word hung in the air, carrying with it a weight that was both a relief and a burden. Humanity had driven the invaders back. The galaxy would not sit idly by after what had happened here. The Zalker's defeat would send shockwaves through the cosmos, and other empires would soon take notice. "Broadcast the message," Parton ordered, her voice firm with resolve. "Let them know who we are." The message was brief, yet powerful. It was transmitted on every channel, reaching across the stars to every corner of the galaxy. "To those who would challenge us, know this. Earth will not fall. We are not weak. We are not afraid. We are humanity, and we will defend our home." The words echoed across the cosmos, a declaration of strength and unity that could not be ignored. For too long, humanity had been seen as an insignificant blip on the galactic stage, but no longer. They had shown that they could fight, that they could win, and that they would not bow to any force, no matter how powerful. Far from Earth, on distant worlds, the reaction to the broadcast was mixed. Some civilizations watched with awe, marveling at the tenacity of this relatively young species. Others viewed the humans with newfound respect, acknowledging the strength that lay beneath their unassuming exterior. But there were also those who saw humanity's victory as a threat, a challenge to the established order that could not be tolerated. In the ruins of his flagship, Thalgr listened to the broadcast with a growing sense of dread. He knew what this defeat meant not just for him, but for the Zalkar Empire. The news of their failure would spread, and with it, the realization that the Zalkar were not invincible. Other species, emboldened by the human success, might rise up against them, and the Empire could crumble under the weight of its arrogance. But Thalgr also knew that this was not the end. The Zalkar would not forgive, and they would not forget. They would regroup, rebuild, and return with a force even greater than before. And when they did, Earth would burn. Yet, as the last of the Zalkar ships limped away from the battlefield, one truth became inescapable: humanity had earned its place in the galaxy. They had faced the might of the Zalkar and stood victorious, and in doing so, they had changed the course of history. General Parton watched the final blips of the Zalkar retreat from the screens in front of her, her mind already turning to the future. She knew the battle was over, but the war had just begun. The galaxy had been put on notice, and humanity would need to prepare for what was to come. They had survived this day, but the days ahead would be filled with new challenges, new threats, and new opportunities. The Zalkar came to know that these tiny humans are simply beasts.